My dad. My dad had this unusual ability to know when a storm was approaching on the water. I can still hear my dad's voice. Load up, load up. Storm is on the way. We would gather up everything we brought, placed it into the boat, pulled up the anchor, cranked up the engine, hit the throttle, and we would do our very best to outrun the storm. The disciples found themselves caught up in a storm on the Sea of Galilee with nowhere to go. The winds and the waves were against them. Their sails were of no use. Darkness covered the stars. They were unable to navigate. They did try to row, however, but rowing against the wind is difficult. I believe in this moment that the disciples prayed. Jesus, having heard their prayer, began to make his way out to the disciples. Not recognizing this figure that was coming toward them, walking on the water, the disciples were afraid. Jesus said, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Peter quickly responded, "Lord, it is you. Call me. Call me." Jesus responded, "Come, Peter." Peter, knowing that it was a risk, stepped out of the boat and began to make his way toward Jesus, walking on the water, until Peter took his eyes off of Jesus and began to sink. Peter knew this was a risk, but Peter also knew that Jesus would be present for him. Jesus reached down and grabbed Peter by the arm and pulled him up to safety. And then Peter and Jesus got into the boat. When they did, the storm calmed, and the disciples recognized Jesus and began to worship him. I've been contemplating why Peter got out of the boat. Why was he willing to take a risk? For me, it was much more than his love for Christ, his trust for Christ, this relationship that he had with Jesus Christ. Peter had caught Jesus' vision for the world that had captivated his heart. My friends, when Jesus' vision captivates our hearts, we too will take a risk and step out of the boat. This vision that has captivated us will also be empowered by God. This is what Peter saw. This is what Peter believed. Peter stepped out of the boat. My friends, I invite you to come and let us have that cup of joe together, and let us explore where God may be leading us to take a risk.